As I stood there, the cold wind biting at my skin, I felt a chill deeper than the winter air. The news of my wife's affair with a ski instructor hit me like a sudden avalanche, burying me under layers of disbelief and anger. I had trusted her, believed in our love, and now all of that felt like a cruel joke. My mind raced as I replayed the moments leading up to this revelation, searching for signs I had missed, clues that could have warned me of the impending betrayal. It all started innocently enough. When Laura suggested the ski trip with some friends, I thought nothing of it. We had been together for nearly a decade, and I had always believed in her loyalty. The night she left, I kissed her goodbye, feeling a vague sense of unease but chalking it up to my own insecurities. After all, what could possibly go wrong with a bunch of friends in a snowy paradise? I remember sitting at home, flipping through the channels, the silence of the house weighing heavily on me. I had no idea that while I was at home, she was out there, falling into the arms of someone else. The avalanche struck when I received a message from one of her friends. "Hey, just wanted to let you know that Laura's been spending a lot of time with the ski instructor. Just thought you should know." The words felt like a punch to the gut. My heart raced and I could feel the blood drain from my face. I stared at my phone, unable to comprehend what I had just read. Was this a cruel joke? A misunderstanding? I needed to know the truth. The next day I confronted Laura when she returned. I could see the guilt etched on her face, the way her eyes darted away from mine as I laid bare my heart, shattered and bleeding. "How could you?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and rage. Her excuses felt hollow, like the empty spaces in our once vibrant relationship. "It was just one night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But one night was all it took to unravel everything we had built together. I felt a storm brewing inside me, a tempest of emotions that threatened to consume me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, each feeling clashed violently within my chest. How could she do this to me, to us? I had been there for her through thick and thin, and now here I was, forced to confront the reality of her infidelity. Everything we had shared felt tainted, and I was left grappling with the wreckage. But as I struggled with my emotions, another feeling began to creep in, an unsettling desire for revenge. I couldn't let her get away with this. She needed to understand the pain she had caused, to feel the same icy grip of betrayal that had seized my heart. I began to plot her next ski trip, envisioning every detail that would turn her winter romance into a nightmare. I wanted her to pay for her indiscretion, to feel the weight of her choices. The thoughts consumed me. I could picture her on the slopes, blissfully unaware of the storm I was planning to unleash. What actions could I take? I wanted to sabotage her next trip, to ensure that every moment she spent on those slopes was a reminder of the betrayal she had inflicted on me. I wanted her to feel the same coldness I felt inside, to be haunted by the ghosts of her choices. As I began to formulate my plan, a strange sense of power surged through me. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect of her downfall. Yet with each step I took, I began to question the man I was becoming. Was this truly justice, or merely a descent into darkness? I had always prided myself on being a good person, but here I was, plotting revenge against the woman I once loved. I had to remind myself that I was hurt, not just angry. I was betrayed, not just vengeful. But as I stewed in my emotions, the lines began to blur. What would it take for me to feel whole again? Would causing her pain bring me peace, or would it only deepen my own wounds? I stood at the precipice of a decision that would change everything. The more I thought about it, the more I felt the need to act. I had to make her realize the gravity of her actions. I had to ensure her next trip down the slopes was a disaster. In the days that followed my initial confrontation with Laura, I found myself drowning in a sea of conflicting emotions. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, and the anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. As I navigated through this emotional turmoil, the thought of revenge became a lifeline, something tangible to grasp when everything else felt out of control. I spent countless hours in the solitude of my home, replaying the events in my mind. I recalled the moments when Laura and I were happy, laughing together over dinner, sharing dreams about our future. Those memories felt like a distant echo now, overshadowed by the stark reality of her infidelity. I started looking through old photos, trying to remember the good times, but they only served to amplify my pain. Each smile in those pictures felt like a betrayal of its own, mocking me with the facade of our once perfect life. I decided to channel my hurt into action. The ski trip was coming up, and Laura had already made plans with her friends, including the ski instructor, Jake, the man who had shattered my trust. I knew I had to do something, but I wanted to be strategic about it. I didn't want to act out of sheer rage. I wanted to make a calculated move that would ensure she felt the consequences of her actions. I began to gather information about the trip. Laura's friend Sarah, who had been innocently texting me about the upcoming plans, became my unwitting ally. I casually brought up the trip, feigning excitement, and asked her for details. I learned that they were heading to a popular ski resort a few hours away, a place known for its challenging slopes and vibrant nightlife. The more I learned, the more I plotted. My plan took shape as I envisioned the perfect scenario. I would take a day off work and drive up to the resort without Laura knowing. I would intercept her and her friends on the slopes, ensuring that my presence would be felt. It was a twisted form of justice I was seeking, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt necessary. I wanted to confront Jake, to let him know that I was aware of his betrayal, and to make Laura feel the weight of her choice in a way that would stick with her. As I prepared for the trip, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I wasn't just going to ruin her vacation. I was about to confront the reality of my own broken heart. I packed my bag with a heavy heart, knowing that I was stepping into a situation that could either lead to closure or further heartache. But I felt empowered. I was no longer the passive victim. I was taking control of my narrative. The night before the trip, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about Laura, her laughter, her smile, the way she used to look at me with love. How had it come to this? I felt like a stranger in my own life, a man consumed by the need for revenge. I questioned whether this was who I wanted to be. Did I want to be the man who sabotaged his wife's joy, even if she had wronged him? The answer was complicated, tangled up in the emotions that had taken root in my heart. The morning of the trip arrived, and I made my way to the resort with a heavy mix of determination and uncertainty. The drive felt long, every mile bringing me closer to the confrontation I had been dreading yet anticipating. As I approached the resort, I felt my heart pounding in my chest, not just from the thrill of revenge but from the fear of what I might unleash. When I finally arrived, the crisp mountain air hit me like a cold slap. I parked my car and took a moment to gather my thoughts. This was it. I was here to confront Laura, to make her see the repercussions of her actions. I donned my ski gear, trying to steady my nerves, and made my way to the slopes. The sight was beautiful, with pristine white snow covering the ground and skiers gliding gracefully down the mountainside. But for me, it was a battlefield. I spotted Laura and her friends from a distance, their laughter ringing in the air like daggers to my heart. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I approached them, my heart racing with each step. And then I saw him, Jake, the ski instructor, standing beside her, his arm casually draped around her shoulder. The sight ignited a fire within me, a mix of anger and heartbreak that threatened to consume me. In that moment, as I stood on the edge of the slope, I realized that I was no longer just confronting Laura. I was confronting the man who had taken my trust and shattered it. It was time to make my move. As I approached the group, my heart raced with a mix of dread and determination. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of my emotions was pulling me down. I could hear their laughter mingling with the sound of skis slicing through the snow, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Laura spotted me first, her smile faltering as recognition washed over her face. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with surprise and something else. Was it guilt? I could see her friends exchanging glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern. But I didn't care about them. I was focused on her and the man who had crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. Surprise, I replied, trying to keep my tone light, but the underlying tension was palpable. I forced a smile, but it felt like a mask hiding the storm of emotions raging inside me. Jake turned to face me, his casual demeanor instantly shifting. I could see the recognition in his eyes, a flash of understanding that he had been caught. "Hey man," he said, trying to sound nonchalant, but I detected the slight tremor in his voice. "We were just what?" I cut him off, my voice rising with each word. "Just having fun, just playing house with my wife while I'm sitting at home wondering if she's safe." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the anger bubbling to the surface like a volcano ready to erupt. Laura's eyes widened and she stepped forward, her hands raised as if to calm the situation. "John, please, let's just talk about this," she pleaded, her voice shaky, but I wasn't in the mood for talking. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her betrayal, to feel the same pain that had been gnawing at my inside since I found out. "Talk," I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's there to talk about? You made your choice, Laura, you chose him." I gestured towards Jake, who was now standing awkwardly, his hands shoved deep into his pockets as if he could somehow disappear from the situation. Laura's face turned pale, and I could see the realization of what she had done dawning on her. "It was a mistake, John. It meant nothing," she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. But her words felt like daggers, each one cutting deeper into my heart. How could she dismiss it so easily? How could she reduce our entire relationship to a mistake? "No," I shouted, the word echoing off the mountains. "It wasn't just a mistake. You betrayed me. You went to him, sought him out, and crossed a line that should never have been crossed." I could feel the eyes of her friends on me, their concerned glances only fueling my anger. I didn't care what they thought. I was here for Laura and for my own sense of closure. Jake stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, man, I didn't know you two were together like that. I thought." "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice low and menacing. "That it was okay to take advantage of my wife, to flirt with her, to make her feel special while I was back home." I could see him squirm under my gaze, and for a moment I felt a sense of satisfaction. He was feeling the weight of my anger, the consequences of his actions. Laura looked between us, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "John, please, just stop. This isn't helping anything," she said, her voice trembling. But it was too late for calm. I needed her to understand that this was not just a fleeting moment. It was a betrayal that would leave scars. "Is this how you want to spend your vacation?" I challenged her, my voice dripping with bitterness. "With him? Is this the life you want?" I gestured to Jake, who stood awkwardly, unsure of how to proceed. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, as her friends looked on in silence, unsure of how to intervene. Laura's face twisted in anguish, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did," she said, her voice small, but it felt like a feeble excuse, a way to absolve herself of the responsibility she needed to face. "Just like that," I shot back, my heart racing. "You just let it happen. You didn't think about me, about us." My voice trembled with a mix of anger and hurt. "You didn't think about what it would do to our marriage." In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just confronting Laura. I was confronting the very foundation of our relationship. Trust, love, commitment. They had all been shattered in an instant, and I was left standing in the rubble, trying to make sense of it all. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand that this wasn't just a fleeting affair. It was a deep wound that would take time to heal. The confrontation continued, a whirlwind of emotions swirling around us. I could see the fear in Laura's eyes, the realization that her choices had consequences. But deep down, I knew that revenge wouldn't heal my wounds. It might feel good in the moment, but the aftermath would still be there, raw and painful. As I stood there, caught in the storm of emotions, I began to question everything. Was this who I wanted to be? A man driven by revenge, consumed by anger? Or did I want to find a way to heal, to move forward, even if it meant letting go of the life I once knew? The confrontation was far from over, and I knew I had to make a choice. But as I faced Laura and Jake, I realized that the path ahead was uncertain. The only thing I was sure of was that I needed to confront the truth and decide what kind of man I wanted to be. The confrontation hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping around us and making it difficult to breathe. I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down on me, and for a moment, I was lost in the chaos of it all. I had come here seeking revenge, wanting to make Laura feel the pain she had inflicted on me, but now I was faced with a choice that was far more complicated. Laura's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she struggled to find her words. "I never wanted to hurt you, John. I thought it was just a fling, something that wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things," she said, her voice trembling. "But it did matter. It matters so much." I could see the guilt etched across her face, and it made my heart ache. I wanted to scream, to unleash all the hurt I had bottled up inside me, but I also felt a flicker of compassion. This was the woman I had loved for so long, the one I had shared my dreams with. And yet here we were, two strangers caught in a web of betrayal. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice quieter now but still laced with pain. "You've shattered my trust, Laura. You've taken something that was beautiful between us and turned it into a nightmare." She nodded, her lips trembling. "I know. I'm so sorry. I thought I could separate my feelings, but I was wrong. It was stupid and selfish, and I hate myself for it." Her words felt genuine, but they also felt like a desperate attempt to salvage something that might already be beyond repair. Jake stood off to the side, awkwardly shifting his weight from one foot to the other, clearly unsure of how to navigate the situation. I glanced at him, feeling a mix of anger and pity. He had played a part in this mess, but I knew that Laura was the one I needed to confront. She was the one I had made a life with, the one whose decisions had led us to this moment. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with hurt. "Did you think I wouldn't care? You've made a mockery of our marriage, Laura." "I didn't think it through," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I was caught up in the moment and I didn't think about the consequences. I never wanted to hurt you, and I wish I could take it back." The sincerity in her voice pierced through my anger like a ray of sunlight, but the pain still lingered. I wanted to believe her, to think that we could somehow find our way back to each other, but the shadows of betrayal loomed large. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship was now in ruins, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." Those words felt like a weight lifted off my chest, but they also left a deep void in my heart. The thought of losing her was unbearable, yet the thought of staying with her felt like a betrayal to myself. Laura stepped closer, reaching out for my hand, but I instinctively pulled away. "Please, John, just give me a chance to explain. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I want to make it right." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I was torn between the desire to comfort her and the urge to push her away. I could see the pain in her eyes, and it mirrored my own. I wanted to believe that love could conquer all, but could it really overcome the betrayal that had shattered our lives? As I stood there, I realized that I had to make a choice, not just for Laura, but for myself. Revenge had been my initial instinct, but now I had to consider what kind of future I wanted. Did I want to be a man defined by his anger, or did I want to be someone who could rise above this betrayal and find a path to healing? "Maybe we need some time apart," I said finally, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "I need to think about what I want, what we want. Right now, everything feels too raw, too painful." Laura's face fell, and I could see the realization of my words sinking in. "I understand," she said quietly. "I just wish things were different." "Me too," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. "But wishing won't change what happened." With that, I turned away from her and Jake, my heart aching with each step. I walked away from the slope, away from the laughter and the joy that felt so foreign to me now. The snow crunched beneath my boots, each sound echoing the turmoil inside my head. I found a secluded spot on the edge of the resort where I could breathe without the weight of their gaze. I looked out at the mountains, their majesty contrasting sharply with the chaos in my heart. I had come here seeking revenge, but now I realized that what I truly needed was clarity. I needed to confront my own emotions, to sift through the anger, hurt, and confusion that had become my constant companions. As I stood there, I began to reflect on the choices I had made and the man I wanted to be. Revenge might have felt empowering in the moment, but it wouldn't lead me to the peace I craved. I had to find a way to heal, to reclaim my sense of self, and to decide whether Laura was worth the fight or if it was time to let her go. The snow began to fall softly around me, blanketing the ground in a layer of white. For the first time since I had arrived, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to take it one step at a time. I would confront my pain, my anger, and ultimately I would confront Laura again. But this time, it would be on my terms. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever came next. As I stood on the edge of the mountain, the soft snowflakes falling around me, I realized I had a choice to make. I could either let the anger consume me or find a way to channel it into something constructive. I took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill my lungs as I began to reflect on what had just happened. The confrontation with Laura had been intense, and while I still felt the sting of betrayal, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. The initial rush of adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a more profound understanding of my emotions. I didn't want to be the man who acted out of vengeance. I wanted to be the man who could rise above the chaos. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face the truth of my feelings head-on. As I made my way back to the lodge, the weight of my decision settled over me like a heavy blanket. I would give myself time to think, to process everything that had happened. I wasn't ready to forgive Laura just yet, but I also didn't want to lose sight of who I was in the process. I needed to find a balance between my hurt and my desire for healing. Once inside the lodge, I found a quiet corner away from the noise of laughter and celebration. The warmth of the fireplace provided a stark contrast to the chill of the mountain air, and I sank into a chair, allowing myself a moment of solitude. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through our old photos, memories of happier times. Each image was a bittersweet reminder of what we had built together, but it also served as a reflection of the love I still had for her. I couldn't deny that I still loved Laura. That love was a complicated tapestry, woven with joy, trust, and now betrayal. I thought about her confession, her tears, and the way she had pleaded for another chance. Part of me wanted to believe she could change, that we could rebuild what had been broken. But another part of me screamed to protect myself from further pain. As the hours passed, I found myself lost in thought. I realized that I needed to confront not just Laura but also my own expectations of love and trust. I had always believed that love was unconditional, that it could withstand anything. But was that really true? Could love survive betrayal, or would it always be haunted by the shadows of doubt? The next day, I decided to reach out to Laura. I texted her, asking to meet for coffee. I needed to talk, to lay everything out on the table. I wanted to hear her side without the heat of the moment clouding my judgment. She agreed, and we set a time to meet at a quaint cafe near the lodge. As I walked into the cafe, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I had to be honest with her and with myself. When I spotted Laura sitting at a table by the window, her expression was a mixture of hope and trepidation. I took a seat across from her, and for a moment we simply stared at each other, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for coming," I replied, forcing a smile even though my heart felt heavy. "I think we need to talk about what happened." "Yes, we do," she agreed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've been thinking about everything and I know I messed up. I can't express how sorry I am for what I did." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. What happened with Jake? How did it get to that point? I needed to understand the context to know whether this was a one-time mistake or something deeper. Laura looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously. It was a combination of things. I felt lost, disconnected. I thought I could escape those feelings by being with someone else, but it only made everything worse. I didn't mean for it to happen, and I never wanted to hurt you. Her honesty struck a chord within me, and I felt a pang of sympathy mixed with my lingering anger. "But it did hurt me, Laura. It broke my trust. I need to know if you understand that." "I do," she said, her voice steadying. "I know I have to earn your trust back, but I want to. I want to fight for us." I searched her eyes, looking for sincerity, for a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. "What does that look like for you?" I asked, wanting to understand her vision for our future. "It means being open and honest even when it's hard," she replied, her voice filled with conviction. It means putting in the work to rebuild what we lost. I want to go to counseling to address the issues that led us here. I want us to work as a team again. Her words resonated with me, and I found myself considering the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. But a voice in my head warned me to tread carefully. Laura, I need time to process all of this. I'm not ready to jump back into things as if nothing happened. I need to know that you're committed to changing. I understand, she said, her eyes filled with determination. I'll do whatever it takes. I love you, John, and I want to make this right. As we continued to talk, I found myself softening, allowing the walls I had built around my heart to crack just a little. It was a slow and painful process, but I could see a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage. We had a long way to go, but perhaps it was possible to navigate this darkness together. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. We laughed and reminisced about our early days together, the moments that had brought us joy. It was a reminder of the love that still existed beneath the pain. As we finished our coffee, I realized that I didn't have all the answers. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with uncertainty and vulnerability. But I also knew that I had to be willing to try, to take a step forward and see where it led. Let's take this one day at a time, I said, my voice firm yet gentle. We'll see where it goes, but I need you to understand that this will take time. I can do that, Laura replied, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and determination. I'm ready to do the work. As we left the cafe, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was willing to face them. Together, we could confront the shadows of betrayal and work towards healing. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find a way back to each other. The days turned into weeks, and as I navigated the aftermath of my confrontation with Laura, I found myself on a path I never anticipated. We had agreed to take things slowly, to focus on rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. It wasn't easy. Every interaction was tinged with the memory of betrayal, but we were both committed to the process. We started attending couples counseling, where we could unpack our feelings in a safe environment. I found it challenging to voice my pain, to allow myself to be vulnerable, but I knew it was a necessary step. Each session peeled back layers of hurt, revealing the raw emotions beneath. I learned to articulate my feelings of betrayal and confusion, while Laura shared her struggles with commitment and self-identity. Our therapist guided us through the difficult conversations, helping us find common ground and a way to communicate more openly. 1. Evening, after a particularly intense session, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. Laura joined me, her presence a comforting balm amidst the chaos of my thoughts. "How are you feeling?" she asked gently, her eyes searching mine. "I'm still processing everything," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want to move forward, but sometimes I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the past with me." "I understand," she said, placing her hand on mine. "I feel that weight too. I wish I could take back what I did, but I know I can't. All I can do is show you that I'm committed to making things right." Her sincerity struck a chord, and I felt a flicker of hope. "I want to believe you," I said, squeezing her hand. "But it's going to take time. I need to see that you're willing to put in the effort." "I will," she promised. "I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I love you, and I want us to be stronger than we were before." As the weeks went by, I began to notice subtle changes in our relationship. Laura was more attentive, more engaged in our conversations. She made a conscious effort to include me in her life, sharing her thoughts and feelings in a way that felt genuine. I could see her commitment to rebuilding our connection, and it gave me the strength to keep moving forward. We started to carve out time for each other again, rediscovering the joy of shared experiences. We took long walks in the park, cooked meals together, and even revisited some of our favorite spots around the city. Each moment was a reminder of the love that still lingered beneath the surface, waiting to be rekindled. But there were still moments of doubt, times when I found myself wrestling with the memories of her betrayal. I would catch myself replaying the events in my mind, grappling with the hurt that still lingered. During those moments, I had to remind myself of the progress we were making, of the commitment we had to each other. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I looked over at Laura, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen, and I realized that I was beginning to let go of the anger. It wasn't an easy process, but I was learning to forgive, not just her, but myself for the pain I had allowed to consume me. "Hey," I said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Thank you for being patient with me. I know I haven't made this easy." Laura turned to me, her expression softening. "You don't have to thank me. I made a mistake, and I'm willing to do the work to make it right. I love you, and I want to be here for you." Her words resonated deeply, and I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I leaned in and kissed her gently, a kiss filled with the promise of healing and hope. It was a small step, but it felt monumental, a sign that we were moving forward together. As we continued to navigate the complexities of our relationship, I began to reflect on the lessons I had learned throughout this tumultuous journey. I realized that love is not just about trust, it's also about vulnerability, communication, and growth. Betrayal had shaken the foundation of our relationship, but it had also opened the door to deeper conversations and a renewed commitment to each other. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt and angry, but I also discovered the importance of letting go of that pain in order to make room for healing. I was no longer the man consumed by revenge. I was a man seeking understanding and connection. I had taken charge of my narrative, and I was determined to write a new chapter. As spring began to bloom around us, I felt a sense of renewal within myself. The dark clouds of winter were lifting, replaced by the warmth of the sun and the promise of new beginnings. I knew that our journey was far from over, but I also knew that we were on the right path. Together, Laura and I would face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that love can endure even the deepest wounds. And as we stepped into this new phase of our relationship, I felt a sense of hope, a hope that we could emerge from this stronger, more connected, and ready to embrace the future. In the end, it wasn't just about revenge or betrayal. It was about growth, forgiveness, and the power of love to heal even the most broken hearts. I was ready to embrace that journey, one step at a time. And as I looked into Laura's eyes, I knew we were both ready to take that journey together.